Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in, where we connect the dots between MarTech and marketing landscape. Stay tuned to MarTech 360 as we explore key strategies for your marketing success.
Hello and welcome to Martech 360 podcast, where we decode the complexities of marketing technology with industry's top experts. Martech 360 is more than just a media platform. It's a community of over 2 million marketing professionals who rely on us for our expert insights, intelligence, and actionable advice. I am Samarth. I work with Martech 360. If you're passionate about turning B2B strategies into real pipeline, and want to separate your fluff for the real revenue, you are in for actionable advice. Because today we are joined by Lee Salem, Vice President of Sales for Americas at Way Media. Lee is a multi-award winning sales leader with a deep expertise in lead generation, digital marketing, market research, and high impact B2B strategies. Over the years, Lee has helped companies build revenue engines, for the names like IDG, UBM, Netline, and many more throughout his career. You know, he's known for driving sales, with his consultative approach, long view thinking, and a deep understanding of truly what works in today's value-driven landscape. Lee, we are thrilled to have you on the show. Welcome to Martech 360.
Thank you, Samarth. I'm glad to be on the show, and thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. Lee, getting the conversation started, let's rewind for a second. Before we get into the strategies, matrix, or picking up the right vendor, I want to set the stage. The entire conversation, we are talking about how the lead generation companies have evolved, how to, shortlist a potential partner, what works in the lead generation, demand generation space right now. And demand generation gets thrown around a lot, but it tends to mean different things depending on the person you ask. Sales, marketing, even leadership might have a version of their own. And with the channels evolving, buyers' behavior shifting, and expectation rising, the definition keeps changing. So, in your view, what does the demand generation really mean today? And how should modern marketers think about its role in driving revenues or top of the funnel leads?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and it's something we deal with every day in my company and many other companies as well. You kind of hit on something right there when you said that it has different meanings to different people, and depending on who you're asking, maybe even time of year you may be asking them.
Right.
Much of the time, the meaning varies, and as it's commonly understood. It's typically interest generated in a vendor's products by company collateral that they've put together and that they've released, that they've invested a lot of money in. Actually, things like white papers, webinars, case studies, anything that can provide proof of concept to a potential buyer. I think as you kind of started to allude to, it goes a little bit deeper than that.
Mhm.
Because modern marketers are very sophisticated, and they're starting to think about demand generation, and have been. This has been going on for a while now. Starting to think about demand generation as creating a one-to-one conversation with truly
Mhm.
interested potential buyers. And this goes
Right.
beyond merely generating a lot of folks who have downloaded content.
Mhm.
It's important to remember that it's really funny. I had a dream a while ago. It shows my work intrudes on my sleep, where I was
Mhm.
telling somebody that a lead is a person. You have to remember that a lead is a person, and you may be calling them, you may be cold calling them, you may be emailing them, but you may be getting them at a bad time. So you got to remember, keep in mind that whenever you're reaching out to a prospect, it's their it's their um, field that you're involving yourself in. So try to make it as relevant as possible and as interesting as
Mhm.
possible to the person you're trying to create a connection with.
Right. No, I mean that's such a clear and an updated perspective. And you rightly mentioned that it's about knowing the person, and establishing trust through content, whether it's, white papers, webinar, through ABM, and it's really, the reframes how we think about the entire demand gen, just more than, filling of the top of the funnel leads. And once that foundation is in place, the next big challenge for more marketing leaders is, why do you trust, you know or who do you trust to actually deliver that? Because, establishing that, trust relationship, establishing that clear perspective, that is where the actual leaders, most of the marketing leaders, face the trouble. Because we did a survey and we spoke to lot many, marketing leaders, where we talked about, the pain areas of identifying the vendors. And that brought us to the discussion for this, the podcast that we are having. And just with so many vendors out there, offering lead gen, demand gen, intent, ABM, and many more, it can get overwhelming fast for these leaders. So from your experience, what core criteria should marketing or sales leaders prioritize when evaluating a potential demand generation partner?
Okay, good question. And you actually hit on it too at the beginning when you said it's a matter of trust. Um, and the core value, I think, is trust, but trust has to be built and earned over, and usually over time. You're not going to necessarily uh, get trust at the beginning of a relationship. I've been in technology, media, and research sales for more than 30 years. And I wouldn't have been able to
Mhm.
survive in this business without building trust and credibility with clients
Right.
and building a reputation for that. Um,
Mhm.
in terms of the bottom line of your question, I think some of the things that a marketer should look at when choosing a vendor is the vendor's reputation in the industry, the ability to get programs up and running quickly, uh, and and uh, and being responsive and being transparent. Uh, the vendor has clean data that is owned, not from a third party necessarily, and refreshed
Right.
frequently by the vendor. Things like timely delivery of leads,
Mhm.
and we mentioned transparency,
Right.
and also a wide range of
Right.
services. There's all kinds. There's a lot of companies that just really do one thing or no, one, two, three, four things, but have a whole range of services. And this includes off the beaten track type services that don't relate to necessarily content downloading, but things like
Mhm.
telemarketing and native language support.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I think, I mean, that really hits the home. You nailed it, that, the vendor should be able to build that trust, should be able to display the eagerness, and, be able to provide services that are more intentional and needed. And over the period of time, we usually build trust. And, I'm spinning the question. It's nowadays it's very easy to be impressed by flashy visuals or bold claims, but in the end it's the fundamental that separates strong partners for the weak ones, if I have to summarize that. The vendors who are strong in operations, vendors who are strong in understanding, like you rightly mentioned, the first party data is very, very important. And, perhaps even when the vendor checks all the boxes, things can still fall apart, if their process doesn't align with how the team actually delivers. That kind of misalignment can quietly derail the performance or the relationship. So, how important is alignment between the vendor and the client sales cycle, and what kind of impact you have seen when the alignment isn't there?
Okay, well, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear me say that it's very important. I
Mhm.
mentioned relating to the fact that the person you're talking to is a person, not just a name, number, email on a list that you have.
Right.
So you need, as a vendor, you need to understand how your leads will be used by the customer. as a vendor of lead
Mhm.
gen, you need to understand how your leads are going to be used by the customer, and make sure that your process aligns with their internal process. Their ABM list, whatever it happens to be. Um, you mentioned ICP, ideal customer profile. Um, just being in sync. It's like any kind of relationship. You need to be in sync with each other. And
Mhm. Mhm.
so that's, that just only comes through working with people, understanding people, and being sensitive and responsive to their needs. I always, you're going to hear me say a lot that always put the focus on the other person, and understand
Mhm.
what their needs are, what their problems are, and how you're going to
Right.
help them. And I think
Right.
that is, as long as you keep that in your mind and not think about how does this affect me, but how does it affect
Right.
them?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And Lee, it's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. When the alignment is missing. And when it doesn't fit, the warning signals or sign shows up. Sooner than we like. Whether we are in the vetting phase, and from your experience, because the early signs of red flags tend to reveal themselves, that how the relationship will last, or what to expect from your process to the client. From your experience and expertise of 30 years, what are the most common mistakes companies make when onboarding or evaluating a demand gen vendor, and what red flags should they be paying very close attention to? I know it's subjective, but would love to hear your 2 cents on this.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think overall, a lot of vendors out there overpromise and underdeliver. Which you only find. I've talked to a lot of people, who are interested in utilizing our services, and I've heard a lot from people that they weren't satisfied with the leads that they got, and a lot
Right.
of the times it's because the company that is selling them the leads overpromised and underdelivered.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a based in reality type person. Like I said, I've been in this industry over 30 years, and I've seen a
Mm-hmm.
lot, a lot of trends come and go. And
Right.
really, the most important thing is the and we get back to the word trust. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's basically overpromising and under delivering is a real negative, and people get disappointed, and as a result,
Right.
it turns them off to the whole concept of syndicated content generation, lead gen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not great for the industry that there are a lot of bad
Right.
actors out there who really poison
Mm-hmm.
the well for the rest of us. I would also say making
Right.
buying decisions based only on CPL is a part of this, cost per lead,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of companies that are selling low cost leads, but they're not, the quality type leads. The data hasn't been refreshed, or it's not good data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something else as a red flag that I would be wary of. Other
Right.
times, it's also, if the salesperson happens to be a friend, or they're basically buying the client dinners or whatever. That's
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not saying taking somebody out to dinner is a bad thing. I think entertaining
Mm-hmm.
clients is a vital part of the business. But if that's
Right.
really the reason for the relationship, that might not be the best, and it might be a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Perfect. And you said it rightly, that over promise and under deliver is something, that one of the mistakes that you only learn the hard way,
Yeah.
unless something spells out like this in front of you, and the mistrust or misalignment happens. And one of the most trickiest part of the lead generation space is, I believe, is cutting through the hype. Like every vendor seems to promise guarantee leads, fast ROI, or uh, some basic magical formula for success. But as we both know, it's not all performance is created equal,
Hmm.
and sometimes what looks good on the dashboard doesn't really move the needle. So how can you tell buyers, or the difference between a supplier that genuinely helps you drive performance and deliver, or against the one who is just dressing up the vanity matrix?
Okay, good. Another good question. There's a screenwriter in Hollywood named William Goldman who wrote some
Hmm.
great movies, including Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And
Right.
he had a famous saying about Hollywood: nobody knows
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
So I think it's the same in this industry. Nobody can really promise guaranteed leads or fast ROI. So much of it
Hmm.
depends on the on factors that are outside of the lead gen vendor's control. In terms of
Hmm.
the ability of the salespeople to manage leads, convert on leads, um,
Hmm.
and the sales cycle, sales timeline, um,
Right.
and promising fast ROI is deadly. I mean, if somebody promises you fast ROI, run the other way, because I don't think
Hmm.
there's anything any such thing as fast ROI in this business. You're
100%.
nodding. You seem to be familiar with that concept. Guaranteed
Hmm.
leads. I mean, guaranteed. They're leads. Yes, they're guaranteed to be leads. But when you say guaranteed leads, do you mean that they're going to guarantee to buy? Again,
Hmm.
that's not something that the lead gen vendor has any control over. So anybody promising
Right.
guaranteed ROI on leads or fast ROI on leads is not being forthright.
Yeah. Run the other way, like you said, mentioned earlier. And that's such a critical distinction. And it's like any good partnership. It lives or dies by trust and open communication, because sometimes things may go south, and it's how important that you communicate and fix things.
Yeah.
From your experience, what role does open communication play in the long term of a demand generation engagement, and how can marketers spot a truly collaborative partner early on?
Okay. Well, open communication is essential in any relationship, and honest communication. And
Hmm.
if something's going wrong, be honest about it. Don't try to hide the fact or try to conceal anything that might not be working right. Be very
Right.
upfront. And people appreciate honesty. I mean, you see what's going on in our society today. People don't trust government. They don't trust politicians. They don't trust
Hmm.
media because they're
Right.
constantly being lied to, or things don't go well. Um, they're
Hmm.
constantly being their attention's constantly being deflected to something else. So
Right.
again, going back to the fact that I've been in this business for decades, um, and that's because I'm open in my communication. And a lot of the trust is based on open communication, whether it's in a personal
Right.
relationship or a business relationship. And
Right.
I've had people who I've worked with who have become friends because they were impressed with my help, with my communication, with my personality. Again, just it's always this is a very people driven business. So
Hmm.
if you're not an honest person, you're not going to survive very long, and you're not going to be very helpful to the people you're trying to help. One of the things you mentioned, and
Right.
I wanted to mention before too, when you asked about vendor reputation and how can you vet a vendor, I wanted to mention things like case studies are very important
Hmm.
because vendor the experience of other vendors is important in terms of making a new potential customer feel comfortable with trying you out. And it's a proof statement because you're not you're saying, okay, here's a company like you, here's a company in your geographical area, and they used us for this, and this was the result, and it worked for them. Can we try it with you?
Right.
So that all goes into the issue of trust and communication.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Lee. Couldn't agree more. Um, you know, I would just to summarize, as I would say, so often the breakdowns aren't in the strategy, but in the way people communicate and be open about things. All right. So before we jump into our quick fire round, I would like to wrap up the main discussion with something practical for our listeners that can take away. So if you had to boil it down, what are the ones do's and don't every marketing leader should keep in mind while onboarding their next demand generation partner?
Okay. Well, I would say the first do is test, 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 test.
Mhm.
Don't
Right.
go in full with a huge commitment. Test the the uh, the vendor's capabilities. Test their the response that you get and that sort of thing. That would be my
Hmm.
first do. Um, a don't would be don't believe the hype. Um,
Right.
we've been talking about trust and credibility and transparency. There's just a lot of
Hmm.
hype out there. And we talk, like you said, people talk about guaranteed return leads or fast ROI. Um, don't 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 fall for the hype. And I think today's
Right.
marketers have gotten a lot more sophisticated about that.
Right. Yeah, you are right. That's brilliant. Short, punchy, and honestly, that's something a lot of folks would relate to. I would say. All right. You know, time for a quick fire round. Just short answers. Uh, from the top of your head. You don't have to think too much. Let's have some
I
fun with
specialize in
this.
not thinking too much. That's what I do with most of my day.
Brilliant. Hence the amazing conversation that we are having. All right. So, what is one buzzword in demand gen that you wish people would stop using?
Okay, I think that gets down to what we were talking about with hype and honesty and transparency.
Right.
Hyperbolic words like game changer or best in class or we're the
Hmm.
best at what we do. I tend to well, I don't use words like that. I don't because there's no way you can prove that on either
Right.
side of the fence. You can't prove if you're a game. I mean, game changer. That's a huge. You got to be like a
Word.
really. You got to be like a really major uh, innovator to
Uh-huh.
be a game changer. So I
Right.
would say I would just avoid words like hyperbolic words like that.
Amazing. Amazing. You know, cold outreach or warm nurture, which gets better long-term results?
Well, better long term results, warm nurture for sure. I mean, yeah, people have to do cold outreach, and the only problem with cold outreach is that there's such a small return on the investment
Hmm.
of time. I mean,
Right.
I get many email, LinkedIn messages and emails wanting me to talk to them about something. I think invariably
Hmm.
will delete it. And coming from a sales guy, that really kind of is counterintuitive because I want people to accept my messages or my calls or my emails. But
Right.
once you it gets down to the issue of building a trusting relationship.
Hmm.
So warm nurture is easily the best for long term success.
Perfect. Biggest myth about demand generation in today's time.
Okay. Um, I'd say that, that anyone has all the answers. Talking about nobody knows anything. I would
Yeah.
say that anybody, claiming that they have all the answers or that uh, they're going to, solve all your problems. That's a big myth.
Right. Perfect. One tool or platform you can't live without in your sales stack.
Okay, well, that would be a good CRM system.
Uh-huh.
That's. I don't want to mention any names, but everybody knows what the CRM systems are out there,
Yeah.
and so I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to be seeming like I'm favoring one or the
Right.
other or promoting one or the other. But
True.
you need to have a comprehensive, reliable CRM system to function.
Right. Right. and that gives you end-to-end visibility, from pipelines to deals to prospecting and everything.
Absolutely.
Super. Right. If you could give one tip before choosing a supplier. So I remember you mentioned test the supplier, look at the credibility, see the services. If it only be one tip, what would it be?
Okay, this answer is going to go contrary to what I was talking about before, but trust your gut. You know,
Hmm.
you're a person. You're in marketing. You've done a lot. You've been successful, hopefully, and you're in your position because you deserve to be, and you've earned it. Trust your
Right.
gut, and
Hmm.
invariably, if it's wrong, you'll find out soon enough. But most of the time, I think you can't go wrong with trusting your instincts.
Right. Super good. I think that's pure wisdom, Lee, with lots of experience. Perfect. Lee, this has been an incredible and I believe yet practical, though and thoughtful conversation that we had. Your take on what truly drives demand generation, trust building, and how to separate strong partners from the shiny distraction is exactly the marketing clarity we need today. It's been a real having you on the show. That's all for today's episode at Martech 360. If you enjoyed this conversation, you know, or you are thinking on the lines of demand generation suppliers, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and we'll share it with the fellow marketers. Probably, we can take answer questions, and Lee can answer it for you. We'll be back soon with another exciting expert insight at intersection of marketing, technology, and performance. Until then, keep testing, stay focused, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Samarth. It's been a pleasure.
We are signing off from this episode of Data Demand, but the journey doesn't end here. Stay tuned to Martech 360 for more insights and strategies that can help you master the Martech landscape.